I'm here with Simon, and we're going to go through a few things on Mortem and Gloriam. Simon, I wanted to ask you, we hear lots of terms being thrown around, Pacto and Magna and Maximus, and a few people may have questions. What does that actually mean in terms of Mortem and Gloriam? Maybe you can run us through.
From Maximus. It's a good term. Hail Gladiator. They are simply the Latin names to parallel the sort of Mortem and Gloriam title of the three different sizes of the game. So the game in the Compendium edition has been designed to have three different sizes of game in it, so it makes it easy to access, but also gives players, even with lots of figures, the choice of playing a smaller game. And that can be particularly good, for instance, if you're doing a campaign, say, and you want the campaign games to be quick because there are many of them and keep the campaign flowing. So lots of reasons why you might want to play a smaller game, or if you've just got an evening in a pub, you could play a Pacto game. So the fundamentals of the game are the same in all three. Your army is made up of a certain number of moving parts, and at the beginning that's probably between 10 and 15 moving parts. And we term those TuGs and SuGs, TuGs for tactical unit groupings and SuGs for skirmish unit groups. So each of these is not a unit as people would often think of it, like a unit in pikes, for example, with a Taxis of 256 men. But the unit we're going to use is much bigger than that. It will be a sizable phalanx of a few thousand. And if you look at armies top down, what you actually see is you actually see the major generals, and then you see the junior generals underneath. So these are, a TuG and a SuG is really the command of a junior general, that you don't represent explicitly on the table, but is a grouping of units, on hence the term. So all that's different between the three scales is the size of those units, and everything else in the game, broadly speaking, can then stay the same. The Pacto version is simplified further by taking a few of the sophisticated moves out to make it quicker moving and faster. But actually, even with that, you can put them back in if you're an experienced player if you want to. So fundamentally, it's just about what represents TuG or a SuG. So if I take a few examples, if we put these on the table, these are Maximus size versions. So that's a pike TuG, which is always 8, 4 deep, 2 across. This is a maximum size Gallic warband. See if I can get some of the, make sure all the figures are pointing in the right direction. We have somebody going backwards there. So the biggest version of that is a 9 base one. And this is a skirmisher SuG of the Numidians, which in Maximus is 2 wide, 3 deep, so it represents a deep swarm. And in reality what they're doing, as represented by the depth, is actually they're riding forwards and backwards. They took up much more space than you would think, because they'd ride forward, throw javelins and do a loop, come back, grab another javelin and a close throw. So hence the depth that we've got on the table. So if you have a Maximus army, it'll be made up of 10 to 20 of those, depending on what type of army it is. So an Alexandrian army might have 4 of those, and some Campanians and some Thracians and flying horse. A Gallic army is probably going to have maybe 6 blocks of those, which you could almost think of as being individual tribes, sub-tribes, villages, and a Numidian army, my Numidian army's got, I think the one that's got the most skirmish, has got 10 of these. Running around all over the place.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, indeed. So that's played in 15mm on a 6-foot by 4-foot table, and 28mm is best on something like a table tennis table. Looks fantastic if you do that. If we then shrink down to Magna, all that happens is we shrink some of these blocks, so they work a bit differently. So I'm going to take 2 off the back of there, and that will become a one. I'm going to take those off there, and these pikes end up like
3 deep.
Like that, if I remember rightly. We played Mag for with pikes, making them stay full size. I might have to check that, so don't worry about that one too much. But they've shrunk basically. So but the Gallic army will still have 6 of these. You'll still have 4 of those, and you'll still have 10 of those.
So it's just the individual units are smaller, but
yeah. But now we can play this on a 4x3 in 15, or a 6x4 in 28. Okay. So now let me turn it into Pacto army, which is where many of you will start because you don't have any figures. Okay. So there we go. Let's take the 2 over those off. Let me take that off. Let me get that off. And these are now TuGs and SuGs in Pacto. So we've got a skirmish one of just 2 bases. Most of them are 2 bases deep. These columns, 3 deep pike, 2 deep warhand. Again, your army, we'll have 5 or 6 of those. The others will still have 4 of those, and still have 10 of those.
I see. Okay.
No difference. It's fundamentally all about the figures. And if you haven't got any figures at all, of course, in the book, we go back here. You've got a ready-made Pacto army for the goals of 3 there. Just copy that and put it down onto the card. We've actually got them on the website, so you can download it. Okay. Stick it on some card and cut it out, and you've got a ready-made Pacto army, no figures. Try it. And the Pacto game is played on this little map, which is 3x2 in 15mm, or a 4x3 in 28mm. So it's a much more compact game.
Yes. Okay.
So basically, it gives us the evolution that if you're a starting player, you can start with no figures. Go to Pacto, get used to it, decide you like it, add these back in, and let's go for a Magna-sized game. Okay, that's fantastic. Let's keep painting because we're still enjoying it. We'd like to play the bigger game. Great. Let's get some more figures, and let's turn them all into the Maximus version, and off we go. So you can actually gradually work your way to it, or if you're an experienced player like me with loads of figures, where I've got several tens of thousands of figures already set up, I can flip between playing the big game. Or if I've only got something like you around for a couple of hours, we could probably play 2 Pacto games.
Okay.
And
then in actual gameplay terms, when you're playing Pacto, it seems to be a bit more of a sudden death game.
So what happens is the mechanics stay exactly the same, but the effect of those mechanics on the 3 different sides creates a few nuances.
Okay.
So the Maximus game has the greater resilience.
Yes.
And because of the morale test spreading bit, the Pacto one is more dramatic. And I've left that there deliberately because it keeps the Pacto games particularly exciting and shorter, and allows you gradually to evolve for long games. So these actually, a Pacto game you probably play in about an hour and a quarter, including setup. One of these is about a 2-hour game, and one of these is about a 3-hour game when you're an experienced player.
Okay.
Yeah. But you will find it, obviously the smaller you go, the more volatile it gets.
Yes, yes.
You know? The more one dice roll matters. Whereas one dice roll against those 9,
you lose 1 base.
You lose a base.
You're still in the game.
One dice roll against those and you lose 1 base.
That's half your troops.
That's actually routed because it's below a 3rd casualties now. So that would rout instantly the minute that happens. So it's got more volatility, of course, but actually that's part of the fun.
And then a quick note on, you mentioned TuGs and SuGs. What is the main difference between it? What is a TuG? What is a SuG?
So TuGs, tactical unit groups, are just a term for main battle troops that are put together. Okay. Bug didn't seem like a great term when I first thought about what to call it, but the point is that's where your main tactics are going to resolve around those, and they are also the target unit groups, if you want to think of it that way as well, because they're the ones you have to kill at the enemy. Because in this game you break the enemy by destroying their main battle troops. Your main
forces.
Yeah, so if you're going to target them, target those. So that's a little bit of a nomenclature. A SuG, they're all skirmishers. Okay, so they're support troops. You can't break an enemy army by destroying their skirmishers. Even the main skirmish armies all have 3 of these or more.
So your break point is calculated on TuGs.
Not on
SuGs don't factor in.
Exactly. In terms of damage done, you get 2 points for destroying a TuG and 1 for destroying a SuG. So you will gather some victory points if you like. By destroying, but you can't break the army. So my Numidian army, you can kill all 10 of those and still won't run away, because it's mainly representing these guys dispersing. You know, they've had enough, they've dispersed, they'll race off the table, come back another day, regroup somewhere. But you'd have to kill off my nobles and my elephants with the foot in between, which is the core battle army that sits in the middle. So my aim with this army obviously is to whittle you down with lots of these before having to fight you with my small punchy bit in the middle.
And you really don't want to lose half of those.
And you don't want to lose half of those because actually if somebody gets to those early, it breaks on 2. So it could be gone in no time. You know, it's got very little resilience, whereas one of these will break on 6 or 7.
And you've got break points of actual TuGs and SuGs that break when they go below a certain.
So these, so TuG breaks when it drops below half. Okay, so this will break once it's lost 4 bases. The next wound will take it down.
And then they're rout.
Skirmishers break after a third. So after that's lost 2 and another wound, that will rout. And that remains the same in all 3 sides of the game. So that's why I said with the Pacto version, you lose 1 base off one of those, they're gone because they're already above a 3rd casualty.
And then of course.
And then the army.
That's the individuals.
And then the army breaks when it loses half of its TuGs. So my Numidian with only 3 back here breaks on 2, so I can't get them involved until I've done a lot of damage with these. I think my Gallic army breaks on 7. Oh no, I've got to set up.
Okay.
So you can lose an awful lot of these.
So-
So these can go for the heavy duty fist fight. Let's just go and pound
So
everybody.
if you have a very SuG heavy army, it
Yeah.
becomes quite fragile.
If you
got
use
just a
yes,
few TuGs.
it is fragile. If you use if you usually it's a funny mix. It's resilient and fragile at the same time. It's resilient because you can lose as many of these as you like.
Yes.
Have fun with them as long as you do damage. But it's fragile. If anybody gets to your heavies before these have done enough
Keep your
damage,
heavies back
you'll be
for your final charge.
You'll be very lucky to survive.
Okay.
So it
Thank
makes
you.
a very very interesting mix between the different armies. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks, Simon.
Yeah, no problem.